Hallelujah. May the 8th, 2021. This two young gentlemen sitting in the most comfortable chair in the world. I'm sitting in the clumsy old office chair. So we try to do some reading in our brand new office. In the office. I'm excited about this. Reminded me when I was in the past life. Get my office. Okay. Anyway, we're going to continue the reading on the introduction section of the book called Confucius Analects by Penguin Classic. Last time we were on some pages. I don't know. Somebody told me.
I would start on the top of page 36, I think.
36, okay.
Even if we may have read a little bit of this, I think it'd be good to start here anyways.
I think that whole section was deleted. So let's just start it from here. Allow me to read, okay? So repeat it. I'm going to read 3 pages. Each person take a turn to read it. This time, we're not going to interrupt at all. Then after that, go back to review a little bit. By a little bit better format to make it announcement. Else,
all right.
You know my mind, running out of verse. Okay, me first. I want to quiet my mind a little bit. 35, page 35 on paragraph 2 now. Here, Confucius was talking about the small man who presumably enjoyed political power, though he belonged to the class of the ruled, and not about the common people, but what is true of the small man will be for Tiraya, be true of the common people. More example has the inference which, though imperceptible, is in fact irresistible. It is therefore of the greatest importance to put the upright in position of authority. In answer to the question put to him by Duke I, what must I do before the common people will look up to me? Confucius said, raise the straight and set them over the crooked, and the common people will look up to you. Raise the crooked and set them over the straight, and the common people will not look up to you. On another occasion, in talking to Fan Chi, Confucius enlarged on the point. The raising the straight and setting them over the crooked can make the crooked straight. Zhu Xia, to whom Fan Chi reported the remark, illustrated the same from history by raising the straight to positions of authority, showing the tongue for those who were not benevolent and distant. Shang Tang 2 dynasties. Okay, so since the moral influence works in an imperceptible manner, the ideal ruler is often characterized not only as doing nothing, but as appearing to the populace as having done nothing, for which he could be praised. The rule of virtue can be compared to the pole star, which commands the homage of the multitude of stars without leaving its place. The pole objected his right role, yet he left behind nothing the common people could acclaim. Tabo is ancient, a righteous character from the prince lineage. Objected he did not want to be a king, basically. I think so. Okay, so Yo is also another king. Was the king who molded himself upon heaven, which alone is great. Yet it was so boundless that the common people were not able to put a name to his virtues. This description of the ideal ruler is a word like that offered by the Taoists, but the two are really very different. The Taoist ruler generally does nothing because empire functions best when left alone. The Confucian ruler only appears to do nothing because the moral influence he exerts works imperceptibly. Page 36. We can't leave the subject of government without discussing Confucius' attitude towards the common people, meaning he did not disguise the fact that in his view, the common people were limited in their intellectual capacity. He said, the common people can be made to follow a path, but not to understand it. They can't understand why they are led along a particular path because they never take the trouble to study. He said those who are born with knowledge are the highest. Next come those who attain knowledge through study. Next again came those who turn to study after having been waxed by difficulty. The common people, insofar as they make no effort to study even after having been waxed by difficulties, are the lowest. Interesting. So he classified based on different standards, as we commonly think, right? So the common people, insofar as they make no effort to study, even after having been waxed by difficulties, probably. It is not surprising that Confucius should have taken such a view. Study, as conceived by Confucius, is an arduous process which is never accomplished. The common people are greatly handicapped. They rarely have the capacity and practically never the opportunity. When on the rare occasion they have both the capacity and the opportunity, they are unlikely to be able to put up with the hardship. Confucius described how his favorite disciple, Yan Hui, was able to pursue unswervingly his studies in these words. How admirable Hui is, living in a mean dwelling, in a bowl full of rice and landful of water. What's a landau? Landau is little full of water. It's a hardship most men would find intolerable. But Hui does not allow this to affect his joy. How admirable Hui is! Confucius may not have had too high an opinion of the intellectual and moral capacities of common people, but it is emphatically not true that he played down their importance in the scheme of things. Perhaps it is precisely because the people are incapable of securing their own welfare unaided that the ruler's supreme duty is to work on their behalf in bringing about what is good for them. The common people should be treated with the same loving care given to babies who can't fed for themselves. This is stated in a memorable remark in a book of history quoted by Mencius. The Asian rulers acted as if they are tending a newborn baby. Mencius describes such rulers as father and mother to the people. It is undeniable that Confucius advocated a strong parentalism in government that this remained unchanged as a basic principle throughout the whole history of Confucianism. That is page 37. The importance of common people and the welfare is emphasized time and time again in the Analects. For instance, Zhu Kuang said, if there were a man who gave extensively to the common people and brought help to the multitude, what would you think of him? Could he be called benevolent? The master said, it's no longer a matter of benevolence with such a man. If you must describe him, sage is perhaps the right word. Even You and Sun, two kings for the ancient time, would have found difficult to accomplish as such. If we remember in what esteem You and Sun were held by Confucius and how unwilling he was to grant the epithet sage to anyone who can see the immense significance of the remark. Finally, Confucius said that if he praised anyone, one might be sure that he hadn't been put to the test. The test turned out to be the governing of the common people. We went on to see these common people are the touchstone by which the three dynasties were kept to the straight path. The sole test of a good ruler is whether he succeeds in promoting the welfare of the common people. So far, we have looked only at the moral qualities indispensable to the gentleman. But the ideal of the gentleman is wider than that for moral man. More is necessary if we are to have the perfect gentleman. In order to understand this, we must first take a look at the pair of terms wen and chi. Chi is the easier of the two to understand. It is the basic stuff or native substance a thing or man is made of. Wen is I'm sorry, the word is 智. 智 means substance, okay? Wen means appearance or polished ways, manners, okay? Translation were confused, sorry. Yeah. Wen is more difficult to grasp because it's a far-reaching application. In the first place, wen signifies a beautiful pattern. For instance, the pattern of the stars is the wen of heaven. The pattern on the skin of a tiger is its wen. Applied to man refer to the beautiful quality he has acquired through education. Hence the contrast to 智. What a man acquires through education covers a wide range of accomplishments, includes skills like archery and charioting, writing and mathematics, but the most important fields are literature and music, and conduct befitting the gentleman. Okay, from there, we're going to have Elijah read for us.
Okay, page 38. Literature in Confucius' time meant basically the odes, while music for Confucius was the music performed on court occasions and sacrificial ceremonies. Behavior befitting the gentleman meant observance of the rites, which included, amongst other things, the code of correct conduct. Besides denoting the accomplishments of an individual, wen can also be used for the culture of society as a whole. Thus, wen is a word with a wide range of meanings covered by a variety of words in English, such as ornament, adornment, refinement, accomplishment, good breeding, and culture. It is not enough for a man to be born with good native substance. A long process of nurture is necessary to give him the breeding that is indispensable to the gentleman. When Shi Tzu Cheng said, "The important thing about the gentleman is the stuff he is made of. What does he need refinement for?" Zheng Kung's comment was that one could not separate refinement from the stuff, for the pelt of a tiger or a leopard shorn of hair is no different from that of a dog or a sheep. What Tzu Kung is saying is that it is the total qualities of the gentleman, stuff as well as refinement, that distinguish him from the small man. And it is futile to separate the stuff from the refinement. It is mistaken attempt to
single it out.
To single it out as a basic factor, as the basic factor. Elsewhere, we can find Confucius emphasizing the importance of the balance between the two elements. He said, when there is a preponderance of the native substance over acquired refinement, the result will be churlishness. What does that even mean?
I have no idea. First time heard this word. Ask Noah. He must know everything. Carelessness. I have no idea. Let's see. Definition. Go on.
Okay. When there is a preponderance of acquired refinement over native substance, the result will be pedantry. Only a well-balanced admixture of these two will result in gentlemanliness.
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 That is a seriously awkward translations, man. So this
That's
guy.
a weird word.
Yeah. Okay. Churlish is means rude in in a mean-spirited, surly way. It's like I don't know, churliness.
Huh.
Yeah, basically, we're biased, prejudiced, and we're opinionated, and tempered person. You know, so preponderance. No idea that word means.
Which one?
Preponderance.
So like an over amount. So like he's trying to express the imbalance between
Yeah, it's more basically.
true and wind.
Oh, okay.
So native substance, a preponderance of native substance over required refinement. The result will be kind of a base nature almost, so rude and boorish.
Rude and boorish.
But when there's
Okay.
a preponderance of required refinement over native substance, the result will be pedantry, which means an ostentatious display of one's knowledge and learning.
Showy
so kind
way.
of arrogant and showy with what
Okay.
knows.
Okay, good. Now that is
Two extremes there.
this place. It doesn't require some special words to describe it. It's I was had to use the word warbles to describe it. So yeah.
There's one place where a mark of Confucius throws some light on the nature of this native substance.
So where native substance is awkward translation.
Yeah.
So, it's basically it's a native substance indeed. So but it's awkward in modern English. So
I wonder how congruent that is with the definition of culture, like one's unique culture, because that has to do with one's native substance, is what I'd imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we're obviously not talking about physical things, we're talking about mental
personality
or ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the culture.
Yeah.
And the refinement of those ways of thinking is what is alluded to with acquired refinement.
Prime refinement. Yeah. Okay. We don't.
Confucius throws some light on the nature of native substance. He said, "The gentleman has morality at his basic stuff, and by observing the three rights, puts it into practice. Such is a gentleman indeed." Here we see that the relation between chi and win corresponds to the relation between morality yi and the rights li. It is not enough for the man to be inclined towards doing what is right by nature. It is essential that he should be versed in the way this inclination can be given refined expression. A man may have a strong urge to show respect towards another man in a given society, but unless he knows the code of behavior which this respect is given,
Is giving expression.
but unless
Read the sentence again so you understand.
Yeah. But unless he knows the code of behavior by which the respect is given expression, he will either fail completely or expect it, or at most succeed only in expressing it in a manner not altogether acceptable in that society. Wow.
It's awkward sentence. This guy is so verbal. It's gonna be
That was
sorry.
a really long sentence.
Let's read it again from the
It's not
beginning.
that
A
bad.
man it's not bad, but when you not understand what you're reading, it can be awkward. So read it again. So let Noah read for you from a man. Then read again so you understand. This is actually a very important point. Yeah. So go ahead.
A man may have a strong urge to show respect towards another man in a given society, but unless he knows the code of behavior by which this respect is given expression, he will either fail completely to express it, or, at most, succeed only in expressing it in a manner not altogether acceptable in that society.
Is that making sense to you now? So read again.
A man may have a strong urge to show respect towards another man in a given society, but unless he knows the code of behavior by which this respect is given expression, you either fail completely to express it or, at most, succeed only in expressing it in a manner not altogether acceptable in that society.
That's beautiful. Very good. You got it with the meaning, right? So, yeah.
This brings out an important point about the rights. Morality does not only consist in action which affects the welfare of other people. It also sometimes requires behavior which expresses an attitude towards them. This accounts for the fact that the word li, though it includes the moral code, is more appropriately rendered in English as rites or ritual. As we have seen, besides the observance of the rites, the most important part of Win is poetry and music. That is why when an equivalent had to be found in the Western term literature, the expression used was naturally Win Xue.
Mm-hmm.
This may be a convenient point at which to take a look at Confucius' attitude to poetry and music, as the influence he exercised on subsequent ages was immense. The first point that should be made is that in Confucius' time, the connection between poetry and music was a close one. Though there was a bond to be music and did not.
This guy is right. English, we're all so. No, what do you think? So
I don't think his English is bad. I think Elijah just needs to.
It's not bad. Yeah, he just need to pick up. I guess Elijah. He uses very interesting way of expression. It's not native English would write.
It's just not like suitable to be read out loud. Which it's fine that we are. I'm glad we are. But it's just like this is the kind of literature that he writes for people to read themselves.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Little too much academic actually, verbose to me. So I'm sorry. He's good English writer. Okay, don't let me over bad. But the first point should be made. That is so verbose, you know. So, firstly, that's it. You know, so, though it was bound, so then this is it. Between poetry and music was a close one. The connection between music, I mean, this poetry and music have a close connection. You know, that's it. Go ahead. But anyways.
The first point that should be made is that in Confucius' time, the connection between poetry and music was a close one.
Mm.
Though there was bound to be music which did not involve words, all poetry could be sung. For this reason, Confucius had probably the same attitudes towards both. Let us begin the following passage.
Now you understand what I'm trying to say. Basically, the music in those days come with lyrics or words. So the words has a meaning. So it's like a poetry stuff. So.
The master said of Sheo that it was both perfectly beautiful and perfectly good, and of the Wu that it was perfectly beautiful but not perfectly good.
Wu show. Wu show means a certain kind of music. Okay, it's performed in the time for highest level ritual. Basically, when people go to the ancestral temples, whatever, to worship. So to do worship, to sacrifice. What so highest level involves a king. The highest level. Then Wu is a different. It's like a dancing, so dancing together goes dancing. You do when you do worship like ancestral do sacrifice. Okay, you dancing around the moon around. It's a word Solomon moment, right? So you listen to the music, come with certain verbal announcement, whatever, words being spoken. But it proceeds everybody follow the step, follow the rags, they're gonna do certain things. You can imagine this like a president going to do inauguration, he's gonna give a speech, that's my point. Then after that he threw a dinner party. So everybody go there just having the dance, have a so play some jazz. So that's my point. It's easy time. So the two environment basically. So yeah, the so is in the biblical context. We know there are time doing sacrifices. Were Solomon were orderly. Other time people say begin to feast. You dancing, drink a little bit, eat, and drink. In the court, right? So that is a time for a little bit of relaxing, not worry, but in a very relaxed, joyful way. So like a big family. So yeah. So that's two kind of music involved. So.
We can see from this passage that Confucius required of music and, by implication, of literature, not only the perfect beauty, but perfect goodness as well.
What's the difference, beauty and goodness, in this line? Beauty is one, am I right? Goodness is a zhi, means nature thing, right? So the characteristic thing, a character thing. Beauty is the form of thing, expression of thing, right? The artistic side of things. So go ahead. Yeah.
The show was the music of Sun, who, chosen for his virtue, succeeded to the throne through the abdication of Yo, while the Wu was the music king of Wu, who, in spite of his virtue, won the empire only after resorting to force, hence the name Wu, military force.
That's my misinterpretation. So literally a celebration of victory, So why is passing on peacefully transition of power, and the other was wind through victory through force. So they come with different ways, So.
For this reason, the former was not only perfectly beautiful, but it was also perfectly good, while the latter, though perfectly beautiful, left something to be desired in its goodness. That Confucius should consider the Wu inferior to the show. It is not surprising that we remember that his abhorrence of force, which was said to be among the things that he never talked about.
He never talked about how to do war. Okay, Noah's terms. Hey, we finally made a good progress. You know why? Because somebody's quiet. It's a good one.
For Confucius, perfect goodness was more important than perfect beauty. Whether a piece of music is acceptable or not depends on its moral quality. Perfect beauty is important because it is the only appropriate vehicle for conveying perfect goodness. It is to perfectly beautiful music that one can listen with joy. But it is only with perfect goodness It is only when perfect goodness is fused with perfect beauty that joy can be experienced, which goes beyond our expectations. The master heard the shao in Zhe, and for 3 months did not notice the taste of the meat he ate. He said, "I never dreamt that the joys of music could reach such heights."
See, he listens to music. It's just like just like over his head all the time, right?
I really wish I could know what the music sounded like.
Oh, must
Ancient
be
music.
very beautiful.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Yeah. I mean, the highest level musicians in the land created that. So they really shows respect of it. The second thing is those times people barely can sing a song, right? Barely can hear the instrument. So the party instrument is very rare. Just think about the absence of music. Suddenly come to this overwhelming arrangement. So
Far more appreciated by
exactly.
Yeah.
So exactly, yeah. Like Tom Hanks Cast Away, that movie. Okay, every day he eat crabs all the time. I mean, barely survived.
Yeah.
So to think about suddenly he come back home, pursue a normal meal, right? Maybe a burger,
Yeah, I remember when
hamburger.
he came back, they had a seafood party and you got.
Oh, I know. I remember that. It was a key to me, man. Anyway, you understand the point, right?
Yeah.
So the taste actually exactly what you wrote here about listening to music. It's like you're not tasting food for a long time. You taste certain food is so good, this other foods disappear the taste on you. So, yeah.
Right. It is no accident that the music that enthralled Confucius should be precisely the shao that he praised for its perfect goodness as well as its perfect beauty. When asked how a state should be governed, Confucius said, "As for music, adopt the shao and the wu. Banish the tunes of sheng or qing, and keep plausible men at a distance."
Zheng is a little kingdom, but its music is more for entertainment, for rivalry. So, yeah.
The tunes of Chung are wanton and plausible men are dangerous. He further said, "I detest purple for displacing vermilion. I detest the tunes of Chung for corrupting classical music."
Why? What meaning? What does the word vermilion mean?
Must be some color. Not exactly sure, it's not one I'm familiar with.
Yeah. 猪乱子, I know that 乱子. I think it's more a dishonor of order. So
So it's like a vivid red with an orange tinge is what vermilion is.
is that right? It's
Yeah.
like a mixed color. It's not real pure color seems to be. So yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Purple is a mixed color, yeah.
Yeah.
I detest clever talkers who overturn states and noble families. There's no doubt that Confucius detested the tunes of Chen, but he did so not because of their lack of beauty, but because of their wantonness.
Encourage the wrong kind of engagement in life. So.
It should be noted that each of the things Confucius detested bore a superficial resemblance to the proper thing, and it is because of this superficial resemblance that the specious can be mistaken for the genuine. Confucius's abhorrence is directed against this spuriousness. The tunes of Chung are grouped with clever talkers and plausible men. Since, like clever talkers and plausible men, the tunes of Chung are capable of worming their way into our favor if we are not on our guard. They are, then, not unattractive as music. In the end, it is not the lack of beauty, but the lack of goodness that marks the kind of music typified by the tunes of Chung. The tunes of Chung certainly did not refer to the music alone. What is said about the tunes applies to the words as well, the wantonness being as much in the meaning of the words as in the allure of the music. In contrast to the tunes of Chung, we find Confucius praising the Quan Shu, with which the odes open. In the Quanchu, there is joy without wantonness, and sorrow without self-injury. This shows that it was not the expression of pleasure as such, but the expression of immoderate pleasure that was the reason for Confucius' condemnation of the tunes of Chung. By contrast, the Quanchu is an example of the expression of pleasure and sorrow in exactly the right measure. Confucius summed up his views on poetry in the following words: "The odes are 300 in number."
Odes is a collection of poetry, okay, Asian poetry. So.
That Confucius himself collected or was collected
It's
before
actually
him?
collected in the past.
Wow,
He was the organizer or editor and interpreter for it. So, yeah.
The odes are 300 in number.
There are three sources called Feng Ya Song. Let me explain to you. Feng Ya Song. Feng means it's a popular music gathered, but it's good, healthy music gathered from the common people, from the country. Ya means then the entertaining music in the court, in high societies, in those days, okay, not like corrupted modern days. So, saying song means praise, for ceremonial purposes, so that's in the court or in sacrificial processions, whatever, sacrificial occasions. So, Feng Ya Song 3 times. So you can see the author different, and my performer will be different. So one of the authors common poems or singers. The other is a court that has it's professional musicians. So song means the high level that is something to do with the court, the kings. Special, very special in high level of musicians. So so. Am I making sense to you? Yeah, go ahead.
The odes are 300 in number. They can be summed up in one phrase: swerving not from the right path.
诗三百，乐十五写，一言一蔽子，乐十五写。This is word for Chinese.
Edification,
Basically,
however,
not inspire you to think wrong things. Wild things. So. Unclean things. So.
Edification, however, is not the only purpose which poetry serves. Amongst other things, the odes may serve to stimulate the imagination. When reading poetry, one becomes alive to the underlying similarity between phenomena which, to the unimaginative, appear totally unconnected.
Elijah, you think so?
Zhu Jie asked, her entrancing smile dimpling, her beautiful eyes glancing, patterns of color upon plain silk. What is the meaning of these lines? The master said, the colors are put in after the white. Does the practice of the rites likewise come afterwards? The master said, it is you, Shang, who have thrown light on the text for me. Only with a man like you can one discuss the odes.
So he was talking about, talking about the beautiful young lady, young girl, talking about her smile, her beauty. Then pattern color upon plain silk. Now, plain silk, silk is a very expensive language, so it's only certain kind of class of people, women, is allowed to wear in those days. Okay, so now you wear silk, it's already expensive, and then you put a color pattern on it. Coloring clothes is very expensive, very tedious, and it's also very ordained in those days. You don't just put a color anyone you want. It's have a social code. Who dress red, who dress blue, kind of thing. Okay, so she is allowed to put a color on this high level of this more expensive in those days. It is only allowed by noble or certain class people to be weared, and then such class people is only allowed to have colors in certain ways. And this beautiful lady, adored in the proper clothing, beautifully dressed, is representing a very adorable image of someone is blessed in a cultural setting. Okay, so in that, why this lady is able to present in such occasion or being seen in certain ways, either I don't know exactly, but she might be a companion of a king or the daughter of a king, whatever, So it's highly in those days. That presentation represents an ideal. It's more than for the beautiful lady self. It's the ideal of the court, of the family, of the nobles. So do you understand my point? To carry a culture thing. So imagine this lady going to get married. She's going to present in certain occasion if she is artistic or whatever occasion that basically that with carried the favor of the kingdom, of the pure way of beauty, purity being positioned, being honored in the society, right? So you imagine it's not crude, perverted, bad ways appreciating beauty of one another in a relationship, whatever. So that is a wonderful thing for the nation to be celebrated, for the family to celebrate, for everybody to celebrate, right? So Confucius using that said this is such a pure thing, so modern man evidently cannot imagine people can be that pure, right? So the whole setup is like engaging to produce such a pure culture. There's no perversion, no false idea, false standard. So then the ways doing things is represent a kind of order, right? So a kind of honor. So if I make it sense to you, so yeah. That's why I put a patterned color on silk in normally will not read it because it's like, oh, it's just colorful, it makes somebody beautiful, clothes beautiful. But Confucius understand this is a poem written by certain people for certain targeting certain audiences and depicting a culture behind it. What is good? What is delightful? What is wonderful? So, and a perfectly sensible topic would be a beautiful young lady. A beautiful young lady in the society. That's a culture, like a king, am I right? Different kind of attention. So, how you treat that young lady, how you praise that young lady, the beauty of it, will reflecting very much, and how make that young lady express her beauty in life. Very much represented with the culture behind it. If a corrupted culture, that would be totally perverted, corrupted, right? So if a good culture, what have you, father adored the daughter, husband adores the wife, So Bible talking about this is a well actually. I don't want to drag it too long, but read on the last few verses of Psalm Isaiah 61. So last few verses talking about adore a husband, adore a daughter. So and Psalm 45 is a footnote to this notion. So it's always related to king. Okay, so king or priest context. Go ahead.
61 verse 10 says, I delight greatly in the Lord. My soul rejoices in my God, for he has clothed me with garments of salvation and arrayed me in a robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom adorns his head like a priest, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels.
You see that? So the bride, the beautiful young lady, adore herself for special occasion, is considered an equivalent, compatible to a priest garment himself in wear special garments, right? Distinguish himself from common dresses, right? So making sense to you, it's a very unique occasion. So it's the same context carried here. So making sense to you? Yeah. Good.
The master praised Zhu Jie for his understanding of the odes, because he saw that just as in a painting, the colors are put in after the outline is sketched in white, so the refinement of observing the rites is inculcated in a man who is already born with the right substance. Zhu Kung is similarly praised for his understanding of the odes.
So they are able to read the underlying and rather intricate meanings of things. Now, what time is it?
So 11:16.
Oh, we still have half an hour to go. So this time we're going to, I'm going to read 3 pages in turn. Okay, so.
I have one more then.
Oh yeah, you have one more. You want to continue to read? You can read it all.
Oh, it's up to you.
Okay, let me read.
Sure.
So we want to practice it a bit. So page 42. The oaths have another use, that is to enable a man to speak well. Confucius' son reported a conversation in one's hand with his father. Have you studied the oaths? No. Let us study the oaths. You will be ill-equipped to speak. The oaths was an anthology every educated man was thoroughly acquainted with. So an apt quotation from it could be used to convey one's meaning in implied or dedicated situations. The ability to speak through the guise of a quotation was particularly useful in diplomatic exchanges. It is for this reason that Confucius said, if a man who knows the 300 oaths by heart proved incapable of exercising his own initiative when sent to foreign states, then what use are the oaths to him? However, many he may have learned, so he cannot use it for those occasions. This way of using the oaths is not limited to a diplomatic occasion. In criticizing the ruler and his government, one should also resort to quotations from those. As the anonymous author of the preface to Quan Chu, I have no idea what that actually means. I'm sorry. So, put it. The one who speaks gives no offense, while the one who hears can take warning. This is important in a political system where offense given to those in power can easily get a man into serious trouble. The first advantage, when one's true meaning is couched in a quotation, it is always possible for one to deny at a subsequent state that any such meaning was ever intended. For this reason, such practice have continued to the present day. I'm not sure that is a good way to put this. Okay. There is a good example of this manner for willed speaking in the Analects. Princess Kong Kui, the son of Duke Ling of Wei, fled to Qing after unsuccessful attempt on the life of Nanzhu, the notorious wife of his father. On the death of Duke Ling, Kong Kui's son, Zhe, known in history as the Ousted Duke, succeeded his grandfather. With a bank in the Qing army, Prince Kong Kui installed himself in a border city of Wei, waiting for an opportunity to oust his son. Jian Yu wanted to know whether Confucius was on the side of Zhe, but since both he and Confucius were visitors to the state, it was not fitting for them to be seen openly discussing the politics of Wei. And if a straight question was put to him, Confucius would be in all likelihood have refused to answer. Zhong Kun, who had the reputation as a skillful speaker, volunteered to go and find out. This is how the conversation went. He went in and said, what sort of men are Po Yi and Shu Zhi? The excellent men look old. Then did they have any compliments? They sought benevolence and got it. So why should they have any complaints? It was not a word about the way, but Zhu Kui was satisfied that it had got the answer. He came out and said the master is not on his side. Po Yi and Shu Zhi were the sons of the Lord of Ku Chu. Now you must be lost because I'm already lost. So has to do with this history, and the English doesn't help. Sorry, it's Asian history. So. basically, what the story is trying to tell is this kind of language is useful for certain delicate occasions, right? So, or communication. It's a cultural norm, a culture special phenomenon in those days. So today it's be obstinate, so this is outdated. The father intended Shu Zhi, the younger son, to succeed him. But still we see modern day people still quoting poets, special sayings from others, try to express their feelings or idea about things, invoke other, other people's sayings, other people's feelings about certain things to replace, rather than directly say, I feel like this, I think like this, right? So that's a little bit about this is how the polish your speaking, right? Polish your language is, so your expression. So that's what it's about. Okay, so I'm going to read on. By approving Po Yi and Shu Zhi in their attempt to yield the succession each to the other, Confucius was implicitly disapproving Zhe, who was engaged in an unseemly struggle with his own father for the throne. So far, we haven't looked at them. Okay, I want here to elaborate read on, because that seems conclusion of section. So
Starting in so far.
Mm-hmm.
So far, we have only looked at the moral teachings of Confucius in connection with his ideal of the gentleman. There is, however, another side to his teaching, which has largely been neglected by scholars who write about Confucius. This is his concern with what might be described as matters of method. At the heart of this aspect of his teaching is the opposition between how do you pronounce that? Xue learning, or Su.
That's word bad. I don't know what's the word. Since this word confusing, so
Or
Xue,
thinking.
Yeah.
Before we can see the significance of this opposition, we must, first of all, find out what constituted learning.
Constituted. Repeat.
Constituted.
Constitution. That's where it came from. Yeah.
A brief look at the difficulties one encounters in translating the word
Xue.
"sure" will prove illuminating. The natural choice in English for an equivalent is the verb to learn, but very often one is forced by the demands of his English language to study instead. The reason is this. Well, the verb to learn needs an expressed object. For instance, we do not say he learns. We can, of course, say he learns quickly, or he's willing to learn. But these are special cases where the focal point of the sentence is not the word learn. We do, on the other hand, say he studies. There is, however, another difference between learning and studying.
Okay, before you read on, English context and context, this English, what the difference between study and the learning to you? Give some key points.
Well, studying seems like, for me, studying would seem like if I want to study something, I'm studying about something specific and wanting to, know more about it. And then learning, because learning has a lot of context. It can definitely be for schooling stuff, but learning can also just be things in life. Just like
the scope
Yeah, you can learn from pretty much anything. So, that's what I think the difference.
Okay.
I mean, for me at least.
Okay, that's where we're insightful. Noah, what are you thinking?
I see a difference in meanings being like study is like more of an action or practice that's involved with the acquiring of knowledge, while learning is like the internal processing, even the practice of that knowledge which is acquired. So study is basically how knowledge is engaged with initially through just receiving it, and then learning, like I already said, is kind of the internalization and even like bringing that knowledge into reality either through oneself, through meditation or through practice.
Yeah, that's a very good one.
So,
I think that's huge difference as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Studies, almost you study a subject, with a set of curriculum or materials. So in that line, you can learn everything you can learn, So this study almost like also try to figure out the knowledge on the principle of the things. Learn, however, try to learn, you can learn everything, but learn to do something about it, with what you study about, So, and again, scope is different, as you pointed out. The end result will be different as well. The purpose for engaging.
One thing I would think of, like, say, a new planet is discovered with a telescope, okay? So the examination and the discovery of that planet is study.
Yes.
But then when the features of that planet and the knowledge we already have about planets is applied to that, and we learn new things about it, then our settled and confirmed knowledge and conclusions about that planet is what learning is.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we kind of build on the examination to create a new source of knowledge. That's learning.
That's
Examination is the discovery.
So let's see. Be a student of life means you study, one studies, one learn from life.
Both, of course.
Yeah, but mainly the second one, right?
Yeah.
So you just want to study it. Okay, that's interesting, and then walk away. So, anyway,
It almost seems like, just like one last point, I don't know how applicable this is, but almost like there's a more objective sense to studying and a more subjective sense to learning.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Yes, that's a very good one. So the third, okay, let's see what he has to say.
Yeah.
Confident stating his opinion.
Oh yeah, I was reading.
44 pages from the beginning.
We're right on 44.
Mm-hmm.
Between learning and studying, that's the end of things. We tend to learn. What?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were saying something.
Sorry.
We tend to learn some things, but study others. For instance, a child learns to walk, but an
Entomologist.
Entomologist
What
studies
is
the behavior of ants.
Studies the behavior of ants.
Okay. Okay.
So that's actually that's a good distinction he gives there.
Yeah.
Child learns to walk.
Walk.
And then Akalar studies behavior events, so that's interesting. We learn something practical, we study something theoretical. And learning, the focus is on the learner. And studying, the focus is on the subject.
That's a good one.
Yeah, those are some good points.
Yeah.
In learning something new, a man improves himself. He either acquires a new skill, becomes more proficient in an old one. In studying, a man acquires new knowledge, but this new knowledge need not make any difference to him as a practical man.
That's what a good one.
This difference in usage between learn and study is relevant to the understanding of Hasu, Sura, of Sura.
Sure.
Sura is much closer to learning than to studying. Like learning, Surah makes a difference to a man as a person. It is an activity that enables a man to acquire a new skill or become more proficient in an old one. But the Confucian context, the most important point to remember is that Surah enables a man to become a better man morally.
That's very important. Yeah.
Thus, morals in the Confucian view are akin to skill. They can also be transmitted from the teacher to pupil. It is because of this possibility that Confucius placed so much emphasis on his Surah. Although learn is much more satisfactory than an equivalent for Surah than study, an attempt to keep rigidly to the use of learn can itself rise to the difficulties.
Give rise to the difficulties. When, for instance, Confucius talks about Surah 学习
it is natural to render this as to study the odes.
学诗 I'm sorry 学诗
But this, as we have seen, changes a practical activity to a theoretical one. Theoretical. Yet, to render the phrase as to learn the odes suggests learning the odes by heart. Though this certainly is part of the meaning, it definitely is not the whole or even most important thing of the meaning. As we have seen, the main purpose of
学诗 means poetry.
is both to improve one's sensibility and to enable one's use of lines of the odes to convey one's meaning in veiled terms.
Read on the Phillips now.
Yep, she's 16. There is a further difference between learn and Surah. Learn is the perfect tense of an achievement word. Surah, on the other hand, is not. The question Surah sees who simply asks whether one has made an attempt to master the odes. But have you learned the odes is a question about achievement. In this respect, study is more satisfactory equivalent. For a fuller treatment of the problem of translating the word surah, see D.C. Lowe translating philosophical works in Chinese. Some difficulties, the art of translation.
Yeah. Go on, Noah.
Thus, sometimes the translator is hard put to it to find a suitable equivalent for surah. Learning is concerned with the accumulated wisdom of the past. Although this does not exclude theoretical knowledge, the emphasis, as is to be expected, is on moral insight. Moral insight is mainly epitomized in the form of precepts. The rites were, of course, a code of just such precepts, though there must also have been precepts falling outside this code. That the rites formed a major part of what one has to learn is confirmed by two passages in the Analects. In the first one, Confucius said, "Unless a man has the spirit of the rites, and having courage, he will become unruly, and in being forthright, he will become intolerant."
Intolerant, huh?
Yep. However, in the other he said, "To love forthrightness without loving learning is liable to lead to intolerance."
Why that? I don't understand this.
Because forthrightness is like frankness and honesty, but to be forthright without wisdom is to be intolerant in a
It's
sense.
like don't.
Like, you know, frank people that, yes, it is admirable of you to tell the truth all the time, but it doesn't mean that you're doing so with wisdom.
Yeah, not helpful.
Yeah, I'm telling the truth. That's what people say sometimes.
Yeah,
but, well,
yeah.
you didn't do it in the right way. You're not being
Yeah,
wise.
yeah.
Plenty of people like
Lack of responsibility in a sense to others. Yeah. Right.
However, okay, here we go. The two sayings are practically identical, except that in one we have the rights, while in the other we have learning. If it plays such an important part in Confucius's teaching, why is it that learning does not figure more frequently in the Analects than it actually does? This is because learning is not the only term that is used for the activity. Very often, Confucius uses wen to hear, and very occasionally, xian to see instead.
King.
Tian.
It's what Jesus said. Let those who hear, can hear. Let some see can see. Right? Some eyes can see. So it's interesting, huh? It's the major organs or channels of learning.
Information.
Yeah.
In particular, hearing is used where the learning of specific precepts is concerned, or where learning is contrasted with putting into practice what is learned. Here are examples of having been taught a specific precept. The master said, I have heard it said, a gentleman gives help to the needy, and not to maintain the rich in style. Chen Tzu Pai said, I have heard that the gentleman does not show partiality. Does he show it nevertheless? Chu Chia said, I have heard it said, life and death are a matter of destiny. Wealth and honor depend on heaven.
That's interesting. Do you know why it's interesting? Because the wealth or honor depends on heaven. So. Sorry. You never know. Same other when the good rush. Sorry. Some this is bump.
Yeah. There's a footnote here for the sentence that says, very often Confucius uses wen to hear and very occasionally tian to see instead. And the footnote is that wen and tian are equivalent to xue can be seen from the two following passages. In 8:28 we see, that's 7:28, we find, I use my ears, wen, widely, and follow what is good and what I have heard. I use my eyes, tian. Tian.
Yes, you're doing good. Is the one that's there's Chinese have 4 tunes, right? So
Yeah.
tian might be a different tune.
Yeah, that's the thing is when you're reading in English,
I know.
it's like it's hard to match
Yeah, exactly.
the tones that are used in English.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. I use my eyes widely and retain what I have seen in my mind. While in 15:3, we have a man who learns xue widely and retains what he has learned in his mind.
Huh. You like that? Can you do that? You must be tired. You guys had a lot of fun last night.
We I
Get
didn't
up
get too
work.
much sleep because we had to sleep in the tent. But
Oh, you sleep in the tent.
yeah,
Well, we might just wrap it up for you to take some rest. Or you want to read on a little bit?
yeah, I'm
Up to
gonna
you.
still read with everyone.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, let's finish the next page because I want those concepts basically be exhausted. So we're in the middle of a quotation. So
Sure. Confucius said, what I have heard is that the head of a state or a noble family worries not about underpopulation, but about uneven distribution, not about poverty, but about instability.
oh, that's a huge concept, right? Interesting, huh? Think about the Americans so rich, but the gap between the rich and the poor so huge, right? So more large, and the people are not happy, right? So we think, why are people not happy? You know, every day have food, there's some clothes on their body. Well, you know, much better than African people, you know. So.
We've changed our perspective a little bit too, so we're not worried about underpopulation, we're worried about overpopulation.
Overpopulation, yeah.
And the distribution of resources, both.
There you go. Yeah. So we're thinking about it, you know. So the perception thing is matters so much, you know. So
Right. Su Yu answered, "Some time ago I heard it from you, master, that the gentleman instructed in the way loves his fellow men, and that the small man instructed in the way is easy to command." Su Lu said, "Some time ago I heard it from you, master, that the gentleman does not enter the domain of one who in his own person does what is not good." Su Shang said, "That is different from what I have heard."
is that interesting? A phenomenon here is students will bring what they first learned to quite understand, come back to the master or the teacher saying, "Hey, can I have a discussion with you? I heard you said this and that." Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Those they don't have funds, man. They don't have many books laying in libraries to get the find the only answer, so the book is the only source for discussion, you know. So, but still, there's a curiosity to carry what they learn to their own quiet time. Said, you know, I really try to figure that out what that means. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Su Chang said, "That is different from what I have heard. I have heard that the gentleman honors his betters, and is tolerant towards the multitude, and that he is full of praise for the good, while taking pity on the backward." The connection between hearing and putting into practice what one has heard is clearly brought out in the following passages. The master said, "Use your ears widely, but leave out what is doubtful. Repeat the rest with caution, and you will make few mistakes. Use your eyes widely and leave out what is hazardous. Put the rest into practice with caution, and you will have few regrets."
学不思the one. I think that's what it is. Anyway, sorry. That's very interesting. Way of thinking about how to acquire knowledge, right? So there's certain people just have no discernment or just like whatever drives their curiosity, drives their senses, satisfies them from the moment they was just all for it, you know. So they don't really think what is useful should be discarded, you know. So they were always wrong with the latest news, latest topic, latest excitement.
Yeah.
They're not progressively really practicing or interested to practice the things that should be foundational, should be principally done. So go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
Before he could put into practice something he had heard, the only thing Sulu feared was that he should be told something further.
Is that amazing quality? A person said, "I don't want to learn more unless I got what I need to learn." You know, in Chinese, however, we're more simple. Can you become a man from a baby in one day by eating one meal? so it's not really direct translation, but the concept the same, right? You can't eat 3 meals a day, but you're gonna be a strong man. You know, so.
The master said, "It is these things that cause me concern. Inability, when I am told what is right, to move to where it is." The master said, "I use my ears widely and follow what is good in what I have heard. I use my eyes widely and retain what I have seen in my mind." Sulu asked, "Should one immediately put into practice what one has heard?" The connection between learning and putting into practice what one has learned is a close one, because amongst the things one learns are precepts, and what would be the point of learning a precept? And what would be the point of learning a precept if one made no attempt to put it into practice? Hence, Confucius' concern over his inability to move to a new position as soon as he has learned that it is morally right, and to lose fear of a backlog building up if precepts come at a brisker pace than he could cope with. But this does not mean that one should put a precept into practice simply because it is a precept. One should, first of all, think deeply about its rightness. That is why Confucius is constantly giving the advice that one should choose from what one has learned only what is good, and to leave out what is doubtful. The only way to do so is through thinking. This brings us back to the subject of learning and thinking. There is a well-known saying in the Analects, if one learns from others but does not think, one will be bewildered. If, on the other hand, one thinks but does not learn from others, one will be in peril.
I'm sorry. That's what a quotation. 学而不思则罔，思而不学则殆. So yeah.
One must learn from wise men of the past and the present, but at the same time, one must try to improve on what one has learned. Although both learning and thinking are indispensable, Confucius seems to consider learning to be, in some sense, more basic. He said, I once spent all day thinking without taking food, and all night thinking without going to bed. But I found that I gained nothing from it. It would have been better for me to have spent
perfect
the time
description of me. So sorry. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I have the opposite problem. Like I spend too much time learning and not thinking about it.
Will, balance.
Yeah,
balance.
like if one learns from others but does not think, I'm going to be bewildered.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying too.
Balance.
Yeah. Here Confucius is saying that if we were to indulge in a one-sided pursuit, then learning would be more rewarding than thinking. A moment's reflection will show that this is not an unreasonable view. If one's aim is to make advances in knowledge, both thinking and learning are equally necessary. But in cases where one has no such aim, through learning, one can at least gain something by acquainting oneself with what is already known. But one is unlikely to make any gains at all if one thinks in vacuo.
What that word means, man.
I suppose by, like in vacuum, like by yourself, like only that.
One can by yourself, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let us take an example which illustrates the way Confucius thought about the existing rites. The master said, a ceremonial cap of linen is what is prescribed by the rites. Today, black silk is used instead. This is more frugal, and I follow the majority. To prostrate oneself before ascending the steps is what is prescribed by the rites. Today, one does so after having ascended them. This is casual, and though going against the majority, I follow the practice of doing so before ascending.
Okay, let's stop there, I guess.
Right.
I have no idea what he's saying there because I'm not familiar with this. Yeah. Well, that's good readings, guys. You guys like it? Okay,
Yeah.
So now what do we discuss about here today? Key points.
We were finishing up some thoughts that were concerning the. See, I'm so bad at remembering the Chinese terms.
That's okay.
Yeah, wen and zhi, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which had to do with, I think, substance, or the substance of the man or of
You
what.
got a native substance.
Native substance,
Yes,
yes. Native substance and what was acquired experience, I think, was the second one.
Acquired skills, stuff like that. Yes.
Experience,
yeah,
skill,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the importance that had in the
He narrowed down win, right? He's talking about the win, what education make one win is, you know. So when it's through, especially through music as well. Poetry, talk about the music and poetry. You know,
the importance of like one's well, man, come on, I need the terms. Like there's a certain way, of course he then, obviously like we were finishing up, or before the topic we're in now, he was talking about the difference obviously between learning and study, and how there's like not a direct application of either learning or study.
At that point he concluded, said, this is ideal gentleman, more about moral or other values, what it means to be an ideal gentleman, right? So then there he said, well, we need to remember there's one point that most
because poetry and music is the most important one.
Yeah, something, make a gentleman, you know, a gentleman. And he said, okay, there's something I want to basically really to zoom in to talk more about it, which is common commentators and missing when talking about Confucius' thoughts, you know. So said that is what it means to learn, you know, what it means to learn in Confucius' idea. So
learning and thinking,
started with, okay, what's the difference in English but learning and the study? What's a good translation, you know, for that word Confucius used called 学, right? So, and then he, after he finished that, he felt that learning is more what it means to be a righteous or a moral person, more than a wise person, right? So he assumed the word called the sage is a word seldom used by Confucius. There's ways how to get there, right? So he said, I can't even be there. So the zoomed in, basically learning all in the end, the focal point of his Confucius teaching is actually learn to be such a ideal person. So then he's speaking about, okay, in order to be that, you know, how you approach it, right? So then talking about the balance of which you commented on, you learn. At the same time, you need the thinking or reflection. You know, that's where we stopped. So he said there's has to be a balance. If you continue learning, but never thinking about it, then it's useless, right? So you continue thinking about it, but don't learn. You're going to, you know, build something. Nothing is built up. So the balance. I try to cover my own mind what we heard. So okay. Any comments? What do you learn today?
The point you made on page 44 about the difference between studying and learning was interesting.
Very interesting one, yeah. You think we can write an essay on it? Ask the young man to write an essay.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe that would be a good one for us to write this Monday.
I have assignment. That's down the road. For friendship. The next thing, you know, write an essay on friendship, Christian poem. And you think a lot, you know, you have a lot to say, right? So you know, write it out. So Does that sound good? I think it's good practice for young people, especially.
Re-express the ideas that you implement in your poem and write an essay.
Exactly, right? You discuss with different people at different taking on about the friendship is. So I try to be inducing in a way to let you guys start to think important topics, put in practically important topics. Also try to, you know, express and maybe teach, you know, share those important topics. So that's more an organic way to learn things. So okay, Elijah, you prefer let's wrap it up. So why I discuss those things with you guys? Because I want you to do good work. I'm more than a good student, but really a good teacher as well. Right? So
But I thank you for this time. I thank you for the teaching time. Lord, I pray that we would continue to have open hearts, Lord, to learn, Lord, and to seek truth, Lord, about life, Lord, and things about, Lord, living a life for you, Lord, in the kingdom of God. Lord, I pray that we would rise up, Lord, more than just be learners, but teachers, Lord, and teach others, Lord, these life lessons, Lord. Lord, these ways to live. So, Lord, I pray that you would just bless it, Lord, and that we would, Lord, draw closer to you, Lord, each day. Just draw us closer to you, Lord, in this time. We pray this in your name.
In Jesus' name. Amen. I really enjoyed this morning's reading. I guess mostly because I did not do any talking.